Last episode, I ended on the shortest promise in the series. The claim, assembled and stated so it can be shot at, and the numbers that would kill it. The standing hedge stands, for the last time. Learning used to arrive free inside cheap junior work. Then the price of that work fell to almost nothing. I am putting that on AI, and episode 5 named other candidates that have not gone away. So here is the claim, in 4 parts, and the last 2 matter as much as the first 2. The 5 conditions are necessary. The 3 families composed can satisfy all 5. Nobody has proven they are sufficient, and nobody includes me. And the numbers that will settle it are public, scheduled, and not mine to adjust. The loop first, in 1 pass, because the argument holds as a chain and you should see every link before picking one to break. Software never designed its apprenticeship. It got one anyway, out of parts bought for something else, and it worked and it was free. The mechanisms underneath it have names and papers, and every one was there by luck. Other professions lost the same path and built deliberate ones, and none moved until the failure produced a body count or a scandal. Then the entry rung collapsed, measured in payroll, through hiring rather than firing, and the layer that trained people for it went through a court. Underneath it sits an externality a century old, which this trade never had to solve because cheap junior work paid the bill. And the tool that took that work is also the best novice leveler anybody has measured, while the same tool used differently measurably takes formation away. So the tool is not the variable. Structure is. Which is where the instrument came from, and I should say what it has cost the person holding it. 5 rows, scored 0, 1 or 2. 0 means absent. 1 means it happens by accident, which is to say it depends on who the junior sat next to. 2 means designed, and designed has a 3-part test. Somebody owns it, it survives that person leaving, and you can point at where it is written down. I published it before examining a single candidate, which is the only reason it can embarrass me, and it has embarrassed me on 3 of the 5 rows. Episode 11 graded from a summary of my own rubric, and the literal text moved contact and density. Episode 12 quoted the literal text and still got peripheral and contact wrong, in opposite directions. Legitimate and designed feedback are the 2 that no correction has ever touched. Then the 3 answers, graded in public. Family A is supervision as production, redesigning work you already do and already pay for, and it scored 7 of 10. Family B is manufactured practice, the seeded defect drill, and it scored 5. Family C is the institution, rotations against an external standard with somebody paying, and it scored 9. Take the best row across all 3 and you get 10 out of 10, a perfect score, and I asked you to read that as an indictment of my instrument rather than a result. I still do. Because every one of those 3 is a grade on a design. None had been run to a result when I graded it, here or anywhere I can cite. And that they compose without interfering is my assertion, untested, made 3 episodes running without my acquiring any evidence for it. So the checkpoint, and this is our own worked example, labeled as ours, never a measurement of anybody else's company. Episode 13 put a kill criterion on the program itself. If the checkpoint at month 9 fails, the program changes, not the verdict on her, because a measurement you will not act on is decoration. The checkpoint at month 9 failed. It did not fail on her. It failed because the ladder asks a question this team's own policy forbids anybody from answering. Level for means works unsupervised. The redaction path is Tier 1, and the rule they wrote down in episode 11 is that on Tier 1 nobody works alone, including the tech lead. So level for there is not a rung she has not reached. It is a rung that exists for nobody. And it is worse than 1 rung, which I did not see until somebody ran it. Level 3 is carry it out without a supervisor in the room, and on Tier 1 there is always a second person in the room, so Level 3 is unreachable there too. The ladder tops out a rung lower than it looks. So the program changed, which is what the criterion said would happen. Tier 1 now ends at a rung of its own, works as the named second and is the one who catches things, and Level 5 is unchanged because supervising somebody more junior was always reachable. Medicine's ladder assumes unsupervised practice is the destination. A blast radius policy says that on the work that matters most it never is, for anyone, at any seniority. The published ladder is wrong at the top of Tier 1, the artifact file now carries that correction and its date, and I am not giving you a running total of these, because I have tried twice to reconcile that count and it does not reconcile. now the month 12 reading, in the form the ladder takes, which is an activity and a level rather than a grade. On the golden set and the error analysis underneath it, level 4, works unsupervised, and the supervision ended on the rule. Episode 11 wrote down 2 consecutive cycles where the manager changes nothing. On drafting and defending kill criteria, level 3, because she does it without a supervisor in the room and with one quickly available. On the redaction path, the tier 1 rung, the named second. And on choosing the defect classes for the drill, level 4 again, because she owns it. Not one activity reaches level 5, and level 5 is the rung that makes the thing reproduce, because it means supervising somebody more junior and there is nobody more junior. That is the finding, and it is smaller and worse than a good score. Which brings the grade, and it is the first in this series that is not a grade on a design. The programmers run, every row read at the same date, which is the year that ran. Legitimate stays at 2, real consequential work assigned deliberately with somebody owning that decision. Peripheral goes to 0, and the rubric gives me no choice, because it says score 0 if there is no bound, or no exit, or nobody has thought about either. There was no exit on tier 1, which is what month 9 found, and episode 12 scored that same fact pattern 0 on air. The fix landed at the end of the year, so it changes the next one and not this one. Contact stays at 1, because one person holds the theory and is willing to help, which the rubric calls 1 resignation from 0. Designed feedback reaches 2, a loop whose purpose is formation, with an owner and a written form. Density reaches 2, because the rep count is deliberately managed and somebody owns it, 3 sessions a week with 3 planted defects in each. 7 of 10. Episode 12's arithmetic gave 9, and episode 12 called that 9 arithmetic rather than evidence. Running it produced 7. And 1 junior is an anecdote. The aggregate numbers are the test. So the numbers, on the record, with dates, because a claim with no scheduled test is an opinion with references. The first is the count. Every August I read the public job boards of Anthropic, OpenAI and XAI and publish what is there whether it flatters me or not, and the gauge is the early career share and not the total. The last reading was 3 early career engineering postings out of 1,412, and postings are not people. Next reading, August 2027. The second is the payroll gap, and it has a population. 22 to 25-year-olds in the most exposed occupations, about 19% below where they would be had they kept pace with their less exposed peers, against 15 at an earlier vintage, and the authors call these early descriptive indicators rather than causal estimates. The third is the enrollment survey, new computer science majors down 13%, and the trap is that bachelor's degrees awarded hit a record in the same publication, for years behind the intake decision. The fourth is a number nobody has published. Cloudflare said it aimed to hire as many as 1,111 interns, and how many became employees is the conversion. Its absence is itself a reading. Then the kill conditions. There are 3, and one I have already half conceded. The first is that this dies if novice cohorts using these tools with no structure at all reach senior grade judgment at historical rates. That attacks episode 9, the hinge of it, and here is the concession. In all 3 studies episode 9 used, the way people used the tool was observed and not assigned. They chose, and the researchers watched. So a randomized trial that assigns the manner of use and finds nothing kills this outright. The second is that it dies if the early career share on that same August count climbs back to where it stood before the collapse, with no institutional change anywhere, because episode 7 predicted the freeze cracks only where somebody takes the cost onto their own books. That one owes you a complication, because the same paper gives me 2 stable states, and a move between them could look like the market healing itself while the mechanism was right. The third is Series 1's and I am not restating it. If the seniors stop being needed, none of this matters. And the unfashionable half, because a claim you can wriggle out of is worth nothing. A firm announcing a large intern class does not prove me wrong, and episodes 8 and 13 both say why, which is that an announcement is not an outcome. A model shipping a whole working application does not do it, and neither does a benchmark score. My own discomfort does not do it either, which is the one I watch hardest. Being wrong in public is cheaper than being vague in public. So, the commitments, in words you can hold me to. I will run that count every August and publish it. And I will rerun this series as the industry moves, because a series that ends on scheduled numbers and never looks at them again was a performance. The artifact is the Apprenticeship one-pager, finished, linking all 13 episode artifacts underneath it. One teen's answer, offered as a starting point and not a standard. So, the last self-check, and it is the series compressed into 3 moves. Grade your team against the rubric this week, out of 10, in writing, and expect a number under 5, because that is the ordinary case and was published as the expected score before anybody sat down. Then pick the one family you could start without anybody's permission. There is always one. Then put the watch numbers somewhere you will see them in August. At the end of the first series I left 2 instructions, one for each side of the gap, and did not know I would spend 14 more episodes on them. If you are senior, the apprenticeship is now something you schedule on purpose, because it will not happen by proximity anymore. If you are early, get yourself into contact with the theory of a system that somebody actually depends on, by any route you can find. Everything here is those 2 sentences with the working shown. The rock has not moved. This series has been about making sure there is still somebody standing on it.